Hello, and welcome to the Inside EVs podcast for April the 2nd, 2021. This is episode number 52. Our top stories today: Kia EV6 gets fully revealed, Genesis X concept bows in LA, Lexus LF-Z Electrified concept debuts. I'm Dominic Ioni, Inside EVs moderator and Inside EVs editor. Joining us today is Tom Moloughney, Inside EVs editor and host of the YouTube channel State of Charge with Tom Moloughney. We also have Martin Lee from the EV News Daily podcast, available on all your usual podcast platforms. And of course, Kyle Connor joins us from Outer Spec Studios. He also puts together magnificent video masterpieces of epic proportions for the Inside EVs YouTube channel. Please subscribe and tap that bell icon for notifications. Okay, so welcome, gentlemen of the panel and ladies and gentlemen of the audience, to our first Inside EVs podcast anniversary show. So we're going to kick it off by talking about some electric things we've been driving this week. But first, we have some bottles to pop, I believe. So cheers, gentlemen.
You go first.
Hey!
Yeah. All right.
There you go. Right. I just have an ale. I'm not as fancy as you guys.
I want to take this opportunity to thank all our viewers and listeners for tuning in these past 12 months. It's been a rough year for many of you, and I hope we've managed to help in some small way for at least like an hour or so a week. I also want to thank my co-host. Not only are they super smart and know pretty much everything there is to know about EVs and the industry, but they're also really good people, and I've just been really blessed to have this opportunity to spend this time with them. All right.
Cheers.
Hold
Cheers.
on, I have to say something. Cheers. Dominic, you said it's been a rough year for many of our audience. I understand. It's mainly because they've had to listen to this show every Friday.
Yeah. Yeah. And how it all began as well. I mean, that was, we were just putting this together on the fly and hoping it worked.
Right.
Yeah. Is that episode 1?
Episode 1, yeah.
And we were like,
you see
my
high and tight there? Don't forget, this was like a month into COVID, and my hair was I was due to get a haircut right before COVID came, so I was already long, and then everything shut down. So I just took a buzzer and buzzed the side of my hair, and my wife saw me cutting the side of my sides, and she grabbed it and said, "Stop! I'll finish from here." So she kind of made it, because I was just going to be I was almost going to shave my head, but yeah. She saved me from that.
As you can see, my hair is exactly the same.
Yeah.
Wow.
Dominic forgot that the barbershops reopened when COVID was over. Tom, they're open. You can go.
All right.
Okay.
Anyway. So cheers, gentlemen.
Cheers. It's a nice way to start your day, because here it's almost 3 o'clock in the afternoon. So it's time for, and the sun's come out, so it feels like early summer.
The sun in England.
Well, I know. Well, yeah, make the most of it. But for you guys, first thing in the morning, so you really are dedicated to the cause. So I appreciate that.
I didn't think we were doing anything special today, honestly. I was just, I hope you start your morning.
Kyle hasn't gone to sleep yet.
Right, yeah. I've been working all night.
All right.
Amazing.
So Martin,
yes,
I hear you finally had a chance to check out the VW ID4 and another pretty popular EV. So
finally.
Do you want to start with your thoughts on the ID4?
Yeah, so finally got over to drive the ID4, and I won't echo everything that Kyle and Tom have said. It's all the car that most people will need. We had it parked next to the Model 3. The other side of it was the X, and then just behind it was a Model S with a very dubious wrap in a kind of carbon fiber thing that was not good. But anyway, and it was just my impression of it was how much more practical it is than the Model 3, because again, the Model 3 is all the car that most people will, every Model 3 owner is probably pretty happy with their car, certainly from a performance and technology standpoint. Right? Yeah. So these two guys are happy with their 3s. But when I, got out of one and got into the other, it was just apparent how much more of a family car the ID4 is. And it's an unfair comparison because it should be compared to a Model Y, probably, but I can't buy that here because they won't make right-hand drive versions yet. So we'll see what comes out of Berlin at some point this year, maybe China. But so it's all I've got to compare it to. And it's just, the boot space is so much bigger. and just inside as well. There's the front seats have got the armrests, and then there's plenty of wriggle room as well. So a much bigger car than I realized, and all the car that I think many people will need. So any VW buyers going back to their dealer and thinking, I finished with this, finance agreement on this, Tiguan. Do I get another one? No, there's no in around 40 grand. There's no reason for anyone to ever buy a diesel VW family car again. The ID4 it goes far enough. It goes quick enough. It's all the car that there's no reason anybody should buy ever a combustion car again for a family car that do a few road trips a year. That's it. That is a great first global car from VW on that platform. Really well done to them. Software wasn't right. Software SatNav just kind of gave up, and they got some work to do there. But and this is called the first trim, and I was a bit disappointed because I got confused with the first Max trim. And the first Max trim is the one with the power tailgate and wave your foot underneath it and all that kind of stuff. So the first trim is actually a little more sparse than I would have liked. I'd have gone. We can't. It's the only trim you can buy here. I'd be more interested in the first Max.
Yeah, that's a little odd decision, right? They got fewer features than they could have put. Usually, the first edition is they got everything. A lot of people, a lot of manufacturers, they load that sucker up.
Yeah, you think it'd be fully loaded, but and just then other little things like it's LED headlights all around, but you would want LED matrix headlights of some sort so it doesn't blind people coming on and all those kind of things. And that's coming later. So yeah, I would think that the initial spec would be fully loaded, but it wasn't. And in the UK, I would hang on for that spec. I think it needs a little more. But again, around 40 grand, really good. Although we have had a change here. So we used to get 3 grand off just the price of the car, nothing to do with our taxes, just 3 grand off the price of the car. The threshold was £50,000. A couple of weeks ago, they lowered that to 35 grand. So immediately every Tesla doesn't get any kind of incentive. There's no incentive to buy any Tesla now in the UK. But a lot of cars that were just over 35 obviously missed out because that was the threshold. So a car that was previously 36 would cost you £33,000, and then it would miss out. There was no tapering, and so the ID4 is just too far above that 35 grand threshold for VW to reduce the price and still get it. So for 40 grand, you're now. So what Hyundai and Kia have done with the Kona and the Niro that were sort of floating around 35 and a half, 36. They've obviously taken some of their margin, and the price is now below 35 in the UK to get the government grant. So now, do I spend 33 on a Kona or Niro or 40 on an ID4? And that is a slightly more difficult subject. So yeah, I don't know. But
it's very odd how they package them over there, because in the US we're totally different as to how all the cars come spec'd. We have the first one's fully maxed out for a rear-wheel drive, and we can't even get matrix LEDs. We can get them in this country, but we can't use the functionality. So yeah, basically we can go auto, high beam, on or off, but we can't do split beam or individual beam somewhere else. It's such a huge safety concern, I think, and they limited it for safety, which makes no sense.
Like the door mirrors. And I had it parked next to, because the guy who bought it, who I was test driving it, he drives an e-tron day to day. And yeah, of course, that has the cameras for mirrors. And I was having a little look at those again and thinking, I'm not sure I can get. I mean, you do get used to stuff, but it seems like, yeah, I prefer the mirrors.
So you drove it as well?
Yeah, and I was impressed.
Okay.
Again, it's just. I was just impressed. I just thought, yeah, this is fine. And again, the first trim, our launch trim doesn't have all the driver assistance stuff. So again, I would wait to have it. Had lane keep, but not lane centering and more sophisticated driver assist. So I would wait.
So weird. In the US, it's standard on the base car. You get driver assistance.
So I would wait a bit. But no, I just thought, yeah, this is absolutely great. USB-Cs front and back. Loads of practicality, tons of room in the back as well. Flat floor, perfect. Bring more on like that, please.
And Martin, you said it's a fantastic deal at $40,000. Here in the U.S. or here where I live in New Jersey, the ID4 Pro starts at $39,900, and we get the $7,500 federal tax credit. Plus, in New Jersey, we get a $5,000 cash on the hood rebate.
Wow!
So it's $28,000. Like
plus no sales tax, plus
no
3 years of free charging.
Yeah, and no sales tax, which that there's another $2,800 savings. So, like when you said, why would anybody buy a Tiguan or a diesel? You know, think about, and you were saying at that price point, how about at 28,000 and 3 years of free fuel? So you know, these things should be flying off. We're just getting them now. My only concern is, can the dealers adequately convey this to the customers? I mean, it's been a problem. It's been a pain point in electric vehicles. You guys know that I work in that field and I see it firsthand. This car should sell itself, but we still have that learning curve where the public really just doesn't understand EVs. And if the dealer can't convey that to them, it's not going to sell as well as it could. But these things should be flying off the lots. You should have to reserve one months ahead of time.
Yeah. Did you have a chance to use the lane assist on the ID4?
No, I didn't. I didn't find that I would use that day to day in the kind of, just because most families are not doing those crazy miles and stuff. You know, so it's just, what did you use it in Florida where you were driving it?
No, I'm not really interested in that unless I'm like on a long trip somewhere. Yeah, I probably would use it, but you know, just like driving, even like the hour or whatever down to the beach. I like driving. I have no interest really in using any of that stuff. There was no glass roof on this one. Again, it's not. The first one is not. So I would wait for that. I didn't have keyless entry, so I'd wait for that, which is all available on the next trim up. It was our first has a glass roof.
No. It's a normal roof, so tin top. But even then, I would still recommend people buy one and get performance-wise. What is it? 8 point something seconds? I don't know. Yeah, I pulled onto some main roads and floored it, and I was doing the legal limit quickly, and I'm like, well, that's fine, that's enough. Look, if you want the best, we always say, if you want the best EV drivetrain, powertrain technology, buy a Tesla. It still is the best. But everything else, they're not that great, and there are compelling alternatives depending on what your priorities are. So yeah, I thought it was very good.
And the target market for this vehicle doesn't need faster than 8 seconds. 7.5, 7.8, somewhere around, I think it was 0 to 60. Honestly, you know, the families that are driving this is a family hauler. This is, you know, a practical vehicle that's supposed to do anything the family needs it to do. And it doesn't need to be a drag strip car. Every EV shouldn't be measured by its quarter mile time, which we've been doing because, you know, and it's Tesla's fault. Let's face it. They came out with these cars that just blew every aspect, and Elon did what he said he would. You know, we're not just going to make the best electric car. We're going to make the best car. It's going to do everything the best. And in a lot of ways, they accomplished that. And now that bar has been set. So now everybody's like, oh, it's got to go 0 to 60 in under 5 seconds, or it's a slow car. You know, I'm a child of the 80s. You know, my CRX SI, and I had the SI, went 0 to 60 in 8.2. I thought it was the fastest damn thing you could drive, you know? And, I drove my friend's Mustang 5-liter, and it was, maybe it was 6.8 or something. And, that seems so fast. Now, like 6.5 seconds is slow 0 to 60. That was like a rocket back in the 80s. So, it's all relative. Every car doesn't have to be a drag strip.
Yeah,
true. Hey, all right. So, Kyle, I understand you had a trip in the ID4 yourself down to Joshua Tree, where you got to play with some Zero electric motorcycles and also possibly some portable batteries. So first, did you end up pulling the trailer with the ID4? And which Zero bikes did they bring in, and how did you like them?
Yeah, I couldn't pull the trailer this trip with the ID4, but certainly I'm going to have one back to do that. Portable batteries didn't come through either. We planned like 6 things for this trip, like 4 days before it happened.
Yes.
But like 3 of them came through, which is fine. We still had a blast. Right. So Volkswagen, my friend Dustin, who runs e-mobility for VW USA, who I've like known, by the way, I didn't realize that was his job until recently. And he's like, oh, we're going on a cross country trip. Like, that's your thing. Why don't you join us? So I was like, yeah, that sounds great. We had shoots booked up, but Timon and Alyssa handled that. So I flew into Phoenix after driving to North Carolina, basically right after last episode where we drove the Mach-E and the Model Y cross country. I flew to Phoenix. Volkswagen shipped this car from somewhere on the other side of the country to Phoenix for me. jumped in, and then 2 ID4s. Dustin's been driving his. He was about 6,000 miles into the trip when I got there. And we went from Phoenix, spent the whole day in Joshua Tree, and then off to Los Angeles, and did sort of like a Southwest tour. It was really, really great. And had a couple other Volkswagen guys that I knew back from the Tesla days, back when I was there and they were there. It's like everyone at Volkswagen's ex-Tesla, which is pretty funny, at least here in the States. And yeah, look, we had a blast road tripping this car around. We had a Myers Meigs join us in Joshua Tree. It was absolutely so cool. Just a random guy, nice guy. I was like, hey, we want a classic air-cooled, something of Volkswagen heritage. And he's just like, yeah, I'll throw it on a truck, have fun for the day. I'm like, I've never met you. And so he just had this Myers Meigs, totally mint, really, really clean car dropped off. You can see photos of that on our Twitter. And just a great trip, really. The ID4, comfortable, massaging seats. Dustin's done probably 8,000 miles in it now, just at the end of the trip, and I did about 1,000 with them, and pretty fun for sure.
So we just had that video of you with Dustin on the screen. So I would encourage everyone to go check that out, because it's a really great interview with the director of e-mobility for Volkswagen, and it's well worth your time. And yes, get some insight into how they're working with Electrify America and other things as well. So did you get motorcycles? I missed that part.
Oh, yeah. Zero brought their entire fleet out there.
Awesome.
We also have Zeros here, and I happen to be wearing a Zero shirt.
That's great.
We're going on an adventure right after this podcast. We're taking 2 Zeros up into the Rocky Mountains for the day, doing some range testing in some real harsh conditions, big uphills, things like this. And the reason is because in about a month from now, we're going on a huge adventure with these things. And
awesome.
So I need to make sure I know how they charge and how far we can drive them given the worst case. So we're going to do some data logging today. It's going to be gorgeous, almost 80 degrees and sunny here in the flatlands. It'll be about 65 and sunny up in the mountains. Couldn't ask for a better riding day.
So you got the DSR there?
Right. We have the DSR, and then Drew, who owns Martian Wheels, who I have on my car. He has the SR in Denver.
SRF?
Basically, just the SR, the older version.
Okay.
And so he's going to ride that up. Actually, I think he's on his way up here right now. Okay. And we'll charge it up to 100% in the garage, and then we'll head out on our adventure in a couple hours.
So did they bring the SRF out to your trip last weekend?
No SRF or SRS. Those, we've already tested those bikes out in North Carolina. Okay. And basically the whole purpose of this trip is I wanted to know the DSR drivetrain. So the SR and the DSR share the same components. We're going to bring a fleet of DSR Black Forests like this here with all the extra bags and stuff and metal guards on this Montana trip. So wanted to get to know this drivetrain really well.
Right on. So do you know off the top of your head what the size of the battery is and what kind of range you can get?
Yeah, it's 14.4 kilowatt hours. I don't know if that's usable or not, but I think that's like the same size that's in my smart car, honestly. Yeah. And it's good for over 100 miles. Around town, you can get like 180 out of it. Sure. On the highway, you're going to get like 75, 80 miles.
Right. Yeah, I love electric motorcycles. There's just something about it is so much fun to drive. Nice and quiet and like just a ton of power. Yeah, the power is great. I rode the DSR around the other day. Timon's actually been piling the miles on it, just driving around town, going to get lunch and stuff. But I took it out in the neighborhood and wide open throttle right down the street, and actually scared the neighbors because it actually makes a pretty good noise at wide open throttle. Like it sounds like a little F1 car. It's just, and so just got out there, cranked the throttle. That's just how I ride. It's stupid, but had a blast on it, and I love that torque. It's definitely not as fast as the SRS that we just tested. Right. Obviously, newer technology, much faster bike. That thing would do over 130 miles an hour down our straight on the track. And this I don't think would do anything like that. But it's an adventure bike. It doesn't need to. It's still unbelievably quick. Right on. All right. So turning to news, let's start with the debut of the Genesis X concept in Los Angeles. Apparently, it occurred on a private rooftop. As you can see. Let's see. Hopefully, as you see, Martin, if you have a shot of it there, it's a very muscular-looking Gran Turismo coupe. It's got the classical proportions, like a long hood, and let's see, we got the picture coming up. Yes. So look at just like check out the distance from the back of that wheel well to the front of the front door. It's huge, and it pushes the front wheel forward and gives it a very short overhang in the front. You can tell them profile a little bit more, but that's for front 3/4 shots, pretty nice. And that's actually, if you want to check out that video, Brett from Motor One does a great job of taking around the car and showing all the styling elements. So the 2-line Genesis styling element is very present here. It's in the headlights that sweep back along the side, interrupted by that wheel well, but they continue on back to the door. Then they pick up again in the taillights, but those only extend like a more normal distance on the back fender. The back of the car is very clean, and the interior is quite driver focused with lots of leather involved, and it's like got a wraparound cockpit. Now, this is not a car we expect Genesis to make, but we will likely see elements of the style in other cars, including the crossover coming later this year, built on the Hyundai eGMP platform. There is also another electric Genesis coming that's based on an existing car. Now, I have a theory that this X concept is there to kind of tee up that car, the second one more specifically. And that car, I think, is the G80. The gas version was just recently released here as well. And it's got the same 2-line thing going on past the wheel well, but it's got 4 doors. I don't know. Tom, tell me I'm wrong, or at least tell me what you think.
So what strikes me is look at how long the hood is. It's kind of like goes against, design language of electric vehicles. And I usually don't get too excited with these concepts that aren't going to come to market. I understand why they do them, but it kind of seems to be an appendage of the automobile industry of years past. Where that was the biggest thing, these wild concept cars that everybody would go to the auto shows and see, and it would be a demonstration of what could happen in the future. But now with the way the life cycle of vehicles has shortened and compressed so much, I don't see as big a need to do these never to be built concepts is really what I'm getting at. I prefer to see something that's closer to what we're going to actually get in production. I get why they do it, but I can't get too excited about it. Does it look cool? Yeah, I think it looks cool. Does it need the huge grille in the front? Probably not. I'm not an anti-grill person. I know a lot of EV people are like, they don't want to see a grill on a car at all because, it's just not necessary. I think if it's part of the design language of the vehicle, I'm fine with a tastefully done grille if that's the automaker's design language. But I just can't get too excited about this stuff. Yeah, it looks really cool. If they were saying we're going to make this something very similar to this within a couple of years, I think I could get behind it. But this looks cool. I kind of get a little Aston Martin in it, even a little Polestar actually. But it's cool, but hey, none of us are ever going to have a chance to drive this. So I can't get too excited about it. I hate to be so negative, but that's just how I am. My opinion on these concepts that will never be built has changed over the years. I used to love them. And now with electrification and how, as I said, the cycle of the vehicles is being compressed. Automakers used to have many years to plan and lay out cars, and then they had a 5 to 7 year gestation period. Everything's getting compressed now to 2 to 3 years or 3 to 4 years. So these concepts, I think, have less use than they used to. It's just kind of like, oh wow, look at what we can do. I'm still bitter at Mini for never making the Superlaga, that convertible, which was freaking gorgeous. Like that I think that ruined me on concepts. After I saw that and then they don't use it. Right. Since then I've soured on it and said, okay, if you're not going to make this for me, don't let me see it. Don't tease me, So that's my 2 cents. What do you guys think?
Yeah, Kyle, I know Kyle likes this thing. I'm pretty sure. Would you be disappointed if it turned out to be like the G80E?
If they can make something that looks remotely like this, that would be perfection. Okay. I'm hiding behind Obi-Wan over here, but you guys can hopefully see me. That's okay. It's absolutely gorgeous. Every angle of this is near perfect. Dominic, I know you're not loving the back end. I do. Look, there's a place for special vehicles. Not every car has to be practical, the best use of space. This is not the point of all cars. That's the point of most daily cars. This is going to be something you park in the garage and you come out to, and you drive it out to dinner. You take it out on special occasions. You bring it to Cars and Coffee. If they were to make this, they're not going to make it. So let's talk about something else.
Okay,
That's the whole point. I'm not saying I don't like it. I think it looks gorgeous. I feel like it's just a tease. Okay.
Right.
So, don't, let me go into a bar and come up to me, give me those googly eyes. Let me buy you 10 drinks and then say, okay, I got to go home to my husband. That's what that car is.
That's a great analogy. Can we just make that a title on a post?
Hey, Martin, can you bring up I have a link there in the show notes.
Yeah.
Can you bring up a picture of the actual G80? So they just introduced, Genesis did the gas kind of version G80, and it's got a lot of the same styling features. So I just wanted to show you,
by the way.
Yeah, I just want to show you how close it is. So I really think that this is sort of really kind of previewing that car in a lot of ways. So I almost don't understand why they made it, but
well, GV80 SUV, GV70 SUV, GV now 90 SUV. They're all going to look kind of like this with the 2-light thing. It's the new styling language for Genesis, and this is the Halo car for the designers to base all of their design language off for future iteration of product. And that's fine. Good for them to do that, knowing that we're still talking about this thing, Dominic. It's not coming.
Okay. Let's move on then. How's that? Okay. So another concept was revealed this past Tuesday. Another concept. Sorry, guys. This one is the Lexus LF-Z Electrified concept, but it's a Lexus. Come on. As you can see, this is more in the crossover vein. It isn't a vehicle that will be going on sale, but with more than 10 battery electric vehicles supposedly coming from this brand in 2025, it's quite likely there will be something similar. Besides some of the styling, I think this tells us actually more about the technology and maybe the performance that Lexus will be going for. They talk about a 375-mile WLTP range from a 90 kilowatt-hour battery, so pretty efficient. Peak charging speed is a bit low at 150 kilowatts, but there is a 3-second 0 to 60. It has a separate motor for each wheel, which allows for the ultimate in grip and handling via torque vectoring. And of course, there's other tech that you might expect now or in the very near future, like conversive AI, like artificial intelligence that you can talk to it and it'll do what you say properly, hopefully. Augmented reality, head-up display, and other things like your touch screens and all that fancy things like that. So, Martin, does anything here speak to you?
You know what I think is interesting about some EVs that we have had recently, whether that is Hyundai with their kind of Concept 45, or even if you go way back, like the first sketches of the BMW i3 were pretty faithful to what came out. And so there is no reason why you shouldn't be making concept cars that can get pretty close to these days to what you are going to put on the road. So again, if Lexus can do something like this soon, then it's kind of interesting. The specs need to be better than 150 kilowatt charging.
Yeah, right.
If you're going to come out with with an EV,
if that's the concept, this is the most their imagination can go within sort of a realm of road legal limits. They're like, maybe if we try really hard and we imagine this magical world, we can charge at get this 150 kilowatts.
Yeah.
Let's talk about something else, because this is also not interesting and not going to come to our streets.
But before we move on, I have one question.
It might do.
So ugly.
I have a question for Martin. That one of the commenters has said, I think Alahun Zayed. Martin, is this Lexus self-charging?
And of course, this is where they've got themselves tied up.
Here we go.
Because they run this big advertising campaign over here, at least, which is we choose not to plug in. Like, that's Toyota. Parent company, they hang their company on we choose not to plug in. And it's great because they have hybrids and their marketing department is running the company. So they're making some money, right? They're probably making bank right now because people are like, oh, I want one of these electric cars. Yeah, that'll do. Like a hybrid thing. Okay. But at some point, they're going to have to sell cars that plug in. And has the wider public paid attention to that? I don't know. I get hung up on this, but I'm a nerd. So,
well, that's why I asked it. I knew it would get you going.
Care? Do people even
We wouldn't
care?
have time for the rest of the show if Martin really gets
Just
going
say
on
self-charging hybrid, and Martin's head explodes.
I'll go back to my. It's all right. I'm back to my beer now. You can carry on. It's fine.
All right. So let's move on then. So, okay, this bring us up to this next one. The picture of this next beauty here.
Right.
Onegaishimasu. All right, so this is probably the most tangible of the cars we've talked about so far. The Kia EV6 has now made its official full debut.
Yes.
This is a car that some of you may be able to buy this year. Now, we've seen some of the styling of this car as it made a separate design debut a couple weeks ago. And since it's based on the eGMP platform, that's also under the Hyundai Ioniq 5, we know about some of its technical bits. Still, this car has its own personality and even some performance differences. For one, there are 3 versions to begin with. And one of those, the EV6 GT, is pretty quick with a 3.5 second 0 to 100 kilometer or 62 mile an hour speed. It might even be a hair quicker than the Ford Mustang Mach-E GT, which has a 3.5 second 0 to 60. So that's going to be some interest. I can see some interesting races coming up in the near future. That it's going to be pretty tight. It's going to be kind of interesting because the Mustang Mach-E is got a presents as a little bit more sporty. This is more like Grand Tour crossover thing, but with an element of performance. So Europe is getting a choice of 2 battery sizes for this: 58 kilowatt hours and 77.4 kilowatt hours, and a rear wheel and all-wheel drive options. The GT, though, is only the big battery and all-wheel drive. The longest ranging one appears to have a 300-mile EPA range or a 316-mile WLTP range. Speaking about the charging, it charges in about from 10 to 80% in 18 minutes. But also, the initial charge is slightly quicker you can get 60 miles of charge in 4.5 minutes. I believe that's just slightly faster than the Ioniq 5 for some reason. Now, Kia says it will be first available in current market, in select markets, I should say. There's a worldwide reservation site. It's like worldwide.kia.com/int/EV6. And if you reserve one, and it tells you right on, if you go to that website, you can see which countries it's available for reserve right away, and which countries you have to wait. But one of those countries is the UK, Martin, and its estimated delivery is as soon as October.
Yeah.
For as little as it's going to be about that £35,000 mark, though. It starts at £40,895 in the UK. And in Germany, I'm not sure how that works with your tax there, if that's included or not. Is that included?
Yes, it is. Yeah. Oh. You have to advertise the price that you pay.
Okay. And also in Germany, which does have the value-added tax included for sure, that's $44,990. Or euros. Sorry.
Yeah.
And I'm not exactly sure how those line up, like features-wise, but the GT line is £3,000 more. That's the next step up. In Germany, it's 10,000 euros more because it only has a large battery option in that trim there. And the GT starts out at £58,295 and €65,990 in Germany. So, Kyle, are there any surprises here for you? And do you lean more EV6 or Ioniq 5?
Well, I like the performance of this EV6 GT specifically. Yes. I don't like the way it looks, but again, I don't really care what a car looks like. I drive a Model 3. It's not a good looking car. So, it's pretty neat. Look, I have been a fan of what Kia's been doing and Hyundai's been doing. As you know, I don't just do electric cars. I do all cars. And I've been driving Hyundai Kia products for some time now, and they've been stellar, really good. And so now we're starting to see them take the best of their combustion stuff and the best of a ground up electric vehicle design, great architecture, thinking well into the future with the correct battery pack voltage, with proper battery sizing, good efficiency. We know it's going to have good efficiency. They do efficiency better than almost anyone. And look, it might be like the perfect little hot hatch to rip around Colorado in, right? You know, we have amazing roads just out here. It's going to be all-wheel drive. It's going to rip pretty hard, and it's going to be priced probably for the GT 60 grand, whatever it'll be. But I think it'll be worth it.
Right on. Hey, it's got Atlanta. It hit pretty well in South Korea. They got 21,000 reservations for the first day. So that's pretty remarkable, I think. And there's also a video out there you can see Kia put out of the GT6. They put it up a bunch of against a bunch of they call it, say, supercars. I think the fastest was the 570 McLaren, or McLaren 570.
Yeah, but that's the baby McLaren, so it doesn't really count.
Right.
That's like the everyday one.
But this is like a family, Grand Tour kind of thing. So so the 570 beat it by like a length, basically. But it beat everything else that had,
doesn't matter. It's going to be fast enough. It's going to be really, really fun just to put your kids in the back and have them scream shredding up the canyons. And, just that's what a car needs to be built for its purpose. So the base one's going to be price point, range, efficiency, charging. Awesome. That's going to be the entry level road tripper right there. The fast one's going to be all of that. Plus, by the way, good luck keeping up with me up in the mountains. Also, up here at elevation, all these combustion cars are slow. It is a measurable difference, even with forced induction. And the electric cars, even with less power, feel quicker just because everything else is brought down because the air is thin. So tons of advantages here. Look, I think we should have another conversation on one of these shows about how we're going to charge all these cars because that I've not yet figured out.
Well, the new administration has just laid out its plan for a huge couple of $1 trillion, but a big chunk of this is infrastructure, and another big chunk is electric vehicle programs, so that's incentive programs. So I think part of that is going to be, it's going to get through Congress. But
look, I think Ronald Reagan once said the 9 scariest words ever are the government, or I'm from the government and I'm here to help. It just doesn't work. So we'll see. Maybe I'll be wrong. But me, I think until there's a free market business case for DC fast charging, we're just going to have tons of lines at chargers, and it's going to be a total mess. Right now is the most attractive time to drive a non-Tesla electric car because I can pull up to an EA and I know I'll find an open spot and it'll be great. What's going to happen in 5 years when everyone's driving a whole bunch of stuff? Who knows? Will the throughput be able to handle the amount of vehicles that are coming through? I don't know. Everyone's like, well, you charge at home for the most part, but look at the highways. Right. Today, if everyone were to drive an electric car, it's not like less people are going to be traveling long distance. It's still a huge amount of people that are going to be clogging up chargers.
Sure.
So
definitely needs expansion. Oh yeah, definitely. We definitely
but
a huge amount of
I don't think it'll work until there's a business case for it, but we'll see. We'll see.
Right. Well, I think the idea is just to incentivize, more DC fast charge, because you need scale. To make a business case, you need scale, and to do that, you need investment. And whether or not you can convince private money to start in making that investment, it's all up in the air. It's not super great right now, but I guess we'll have to see with that. So Tom,
a little bit on that subject. The private money is there. They're just waiting. I have a consulting company, and I actually am working with 2 different companies right now that are just sitting there waiting for the time to be right. And we're talking billions in investment that are ready to just roll it out, but they think it's a little too early right now. So I think as adoption increases, we're only at like 2% nationally, a little more than 2% nationally. Right. I think once that number starts creeping up to 5, 8, 9, 10, I think you're just going to see boom. And we've seen networks like Electrify America. Electrify America, for instance, inside of 2 years has, 3,000 DC fast chargers or something installed like that. I forget the number exactly. We have Rivian basically saying in 2.5 years, they're going to put out 3,500 DC fast chargers. So it's only going to take a couple of years with this massive investment. And a lot of this is going to come from oil and gas money because they want to continue to sell you your transportation energy. So, I think the money's going to be there. I think we don't see it yet because there just aren't enough electric cars. It's a losing proposition. As Kyle's 100% right. There's no business case for DC fast charge right now. I actually own and operate a DC fast charger. I lose $500 a month just to keep that out there as a public service. So, and that's a low powered DC fast charger, 24 kilowatt. If I was paying the demand fees for a 350 kilowatt DC fast charger, it would be in the thousands every month that I would be subsidizing it, which these companies are. And which I get frustrated sometimes when people complain about, oh, it's 31 cents a kilowatt hour, for crying out loud, they lost money on your charging. And you're complaining that they charge you double what it costs you at home on electricity. But I mean, that's Kyle said that earlier. We should almost dedicate one show and just talk about infrastructure.
We should, because I disagree. With you, at least. I think there'll be plenty of money there, but I think the cars are going to outweigh the infrastructure here pretty soon.
It could. What could happen, Kyle, is that we hit this inflection point and the EV adoption increases so quickly that the companies can't keep up with it. That could happen. But what I do know is that there are companies waiting in the lurch now.
I agree. There's money out there.
Yeah, and then they plan on getting, moving forward really quickly when it happens. We just don't know. Is it going to be a hockey stick inflection point? Are we going to see this with electric vehicle adoption, or is it going to be this? None of us really know that for sure yet.
Sure. And besides the scale, I think we also need private business to find other revenue streams from those, charging stations. You can't make a go of it just by charging people for electricity. You need like commercials, branding, maybe really close services close by associated with the charging station. We have a little thing with a Jeep coming up later in the show, hopefully, that's got an interesting little model. And I even think like stationary batteries doing local work with the grid, some stabilization, some harmonization of the frequencies, some load sharing, things like that. I think there's other revenue streams that, companies can exploit that they really haven't even begun to explore yet.
Well, the scary thing to me is I spoke to Xcel Energy, which is like our largest energy provider here in Colorado, and I spoke to their EV team. First off, no one there drives an electric car. Big red flag to me. Secondly, I said, what's your plan? We're like, oh, we want to put in 50 kilowatt chargers everywhere. I'm like, first off, don't waste your time. No one's going to charge there. Secondly, how are you even going to make money at 50 kilowatts? You buy the electricity basically for free. They can buy it at a penny a kilowatt hour, and they don't even have to charge themselves demand charges. And they're like, yeah, we'll never make money on it. And I'm like, even if you're getting the electricity for free, they will never make money because the infrastructure is so expensive. So what they're doing is Colorado has basically free money for infrastructure. And so they're taking the government funded free money, putting in the infrastructure, putting in the free charging, and great. So I'm like, well, at least let me help you where to put these things, and don't put in a 50 kilowatt and waste your time.
Right. All right. So let's consider doing an infrastructure show and like prepare some ideas. I don't know, Martin, you probably have some thoughts on this as well, right?
Yeah, I think it's a different case over here in Europe as well. I think the market is a little more competitive, and I think there are some bigger players having a little dabble, the likes of Total and BP and Shell, making some acquisitions over the last few years, more so over here, I think, than in the US. So that'd be a good show to do, I think.
Right. Hey, so I wanted to get on to another reveal, but really first I wanted to mention that Tesla released its production numbers or sales numbers, I guess, globally for the first quarter. And they have had like a record quarter. And this is like the first quarter of the year. Typically, every first quarter in the past, the numbers are, significantly lower than the fourth quarter of the year prior. This year, no, it's 184,800 vehicles globally in the first quarter of the year. So, congratulations, Tesla. A round of applause. That's really great. Now bring us the Cybertruck. Tom wants a Cybertruck, man.
Yeah. At least show me what it's going to look like, for crying out loud.
Yeah. All right. I wanted to get that up there. Some really great numbers.
Yeah, some great numbers on production and deliveries there. And I can't wait to dig into these and have a look at China. I just think that's
true.
I underestimated when they were talking about it for all those years. I'm like, we've got to start production in China. I underestimated. I didn't fully appreciate how, by China coming out of COVID first, how it saved their 2020. And we'll see what it does their 2021 as well, because Berlin won't really ramp up. Texas won't be till next year and in good numbers. and they keep playing down Berlin this year, saying, "Yeah, no, scale more, no, 2022 for the big numbers." But yeah, so I'd like to fully dig into those and see where they've come from.
Oh, all right. So we have yet another reveal this week. This isn't an entire car, just the interior. The Mercedes EQS is going to be a very, very nice place if you like traditional luxury. For me, I see it as it's pretty classy. It's got like a nautical theme going on there. It's got like yacht deckings here, and you can see there in the center console and on the doors, on the like armrests on the doors. But of course, the biggest thing here is that screen. It's like massive. It's like all the way across the front. Tom, can you tell us a little more about this MBUX Hyperscreen?
So it is an option. It won't be the standard screen. The standard vehicle has two, like about 12-inch screens. One as the driver's there. We got a picture there.
That's the S Class.
Yeah, that's the S Class. Well, what we
for comparison.
Yeah, for comparison. But that's basically what we're going to have for the standard vehicle. Isn't going to have the hyper screen that goes across the whole dashboard. And if you go to Inside EVs, what Dominic's showing you there, we have a really cool tool where we could overlay two pictures and slide it back and forth, so you could see kind of what it's going to look like in either trim. That hyper screen is awesome. I think it looks so futuristic. I mean, it's I didn't think anything would look more futuristic than Tesla, but they kind of did it there. I mean, even though Byton had that concept with that big screen across the entire front of the dashboard, it didn't look like as futuristic as this does, because it just kind of looked like this giant screen that was sitting on top of a dashboard. This looks like it's integrated into it, as it is integrated into and just flows. It's a curved screen. I think it looks really cool. I'd be really interested to see what kind of an option that is, though, because as I said, that's optional. That's not standard. That's got to be a really expensive option. But for most S-Class owners, the 2021 S-Class starts at 110 grand. That's not the EQS. That's just the S-Class that comes with I think the 3-liter V6. You don't even get the V8 for 110 grand with the S-Class, if I'm correct. So this is going to be a really expensive car. So probably most EQS buyers probably have the coin to jump up and get this hyperscreen. And I think the interior is beautiful, and there's definitely a market for that. A lot of people want EVs, but still want classic luxury. Not the minimalistic approach that, say, Tesla takes. So, yeah, I think it's beautiful.
So I think personally that for the EQS, Mercedes shouldn't even offer a lower option. I think high spec, top of the line. So you can buy an S-Class, it's pretty nice, or you can get this, which is way nicer. It's more expensive, but hey, are you?
I like options.
Options are great. Germans do options very well, and I guess I don't know if I can talk about it yet, but stay tuned for tonight because I have something coming on this. But it doesn't look as seamless in real life as it does here in the photo.
Okay,
I guess that's all I'm trying to say.
But it's like one piece of glass, though, and it's kind of curved, and it's got like 3 different screens in the back, basically.
Yeah, but you can see the screens through the glass, if you know what I mean. You can see the bezels. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, that was going to be one of my questions, which was actually how seamless is it, and is it one piece of glass? So if I drop my iPhone, it's an inconvenience. If one little corner of this gets a smash, is that a single piece of glass that has to be replaced? And that's going to be, but how often the car dashes really get smashed? But
look, I really think the take rate's going to be quite low on this big screen. An S-Class owner is a traditional buyer. They like wood, they like touch points, and I can't remember the embargo dates on all this stuff, so I'm going to keep quiet. But for the most part, the center screen is going to be the luxury option when you can spec the wood trim behind, and you can just like this, and it's going to be really tactile and great, and the middle screen is going to do everything you need it to do. The big screen, the hyper screen, is going to look beautiful, and it's going to be impressive. But yeah, fingerprints, sunlight reflections, these are all the things we're going to have to test over time. But yeah, all I can say is stay tuned for tonight.
I like that. So that's tonight on the Out of Spec Motoring channel? Or
no, it'll be on Inside EVs US, and then there's plenty more to come, of course.
Okay, awesome.
Kyle, I also know that a lot of S-Class owners also don't get tied up with options. They go to the dealer and they basically say, fully option it for me. You know,
Yeah,
I have friends, and they don't even get involved with what the package is or what. They don't even know what they're getting. They just say, give me every option in black, and that's it. So they're going to get the hyper screen without even knowing that there was a choice of a different type of screen, because they just assume every option means I have the best. And if I drive an S-Class, I want the best.
It's so true. You know, the S-Class has been the gold standard for 30, 40, 50 years. And I've driven almost every generation of S-Class now, and they do drive so much better than anything else for its intended purpose. And so what I'm really excited to find out is, does the EQS hold up to this? Or is it going to feel like an e-tron? Is it going to feel solid but not perfect? It needs to be far superior in a luxurious way to anything on the road. It needs to be obviously blowing away Model S. That's not even the same category. It needs to blow away the Lucid Air. It has to be the comfortable, really well integrated, great rear steering. All of the stuff you'd expect from a regular S-Class needs to be in here. It just needs to be electrified. And, you know, we've seen the concept photos of this one bow design of this singular shape leading to a really slippery design. I think that's been released now. It's going to be the most aerodynamic car ever.
0.20.
Yeah. Of any production, series production vehicle, it will be the slipperiest, which is pretty neat. And so we'll see what that looks like with all the camo off. I haven't seen it with all the camo off. I will soon. And yeah, pretty excited about this car for sure, because I'm such an S-Class fan. This is a very important car to me personally, and they need to get it right.
Yeah, and I agree with. Let me 2 minutes. I agree with Kyle. The S-Class is the benchmark, and I've driven every luxury car out there. You know, BMW 7 Series, which is a fantastic car. It falls short of the Mercedes S-Class in many metrics. So you know, this has to nail it. And you know, I had the opportunity to drive the concept. I saw the prototype in person, all camoed up. I got to talk to the Mercedes engineers that are leading this program at great length. And, you know, I mean, the employees are always going to give you the same lines, but it really seemed, it kind of stood out to me like it did when I spoke with the Mustang Mach-E engineering staff, how they were they seemed like they were completely involved in the entire process to make it drive and feel like it earned the Mustang badge. Now, whether it did or not, that's Kyle disagrees with that. But I can tell you that the team was fully vested in trying to achieve that. And I can tell you that the EQS team felt the same way, that they didn't want to let down the brand and they would be letting down the brand if this didn't earn the S-Class badge. So like Kyle, I can't wait to get behind the wheel of pre-production version of this thing.
Right on. So Mercedes also just increased the range figures for this EQS. So they announced that it has a 0.20 drag coefficient, which is, Kyle was saying, the lowest out there. And so they're getting, instead of 435 miles or 700 kilometers of range, they're saying now it gets 479 miles or 770 kilometers of range. That's on the WLTP test. So, you know, expect some a bit lower, but, you know, I bet you it's going to be like, you know, 425 EPA, which is, you know, something. That's higher than the Tesla now, right? I believe Tesla Model S. Yeah,
it's right around there.
Right. I mean, and, you know, there's plenty of miles. Once you get over 400 miles, you know, you're fine. You need it. And just quick before we move on, AMG, which is the performance arm of Mercedes, they're going to be doing some high performance versions of this and some other EQ cars. And the first of these will debut later this year. And I believe it's probably going to be the EQS. I don't know. I saw some performance numbers. Yeah, here we have them up on the screen. And 22-inch wheels, 22 kilowatt hour AC charging, 200 kilowatt decent. You know, these aren't great. I understand it has a different wiring harness, especially for the AMG line, but the performance numbers, I think it was like 4 seconds, 0 to 60. So not even as fast as the Kia. So, you know, I don't know if that really hits
Well,
Right.
this is a big, heavy car, and you have to keep in mind, performance is more, we talked about at the beginning of the show, than 0 to 60. 4 seconds is pretty quick. It's not on par with their combustion vehicles yet, though. And maybe this is intentional. We'll see. The big things that we need to look for are thermal longevity, high-speed cruising under high loads, Autobahn type situations. These are the things that matter to the Germans, and they need to get it right. Track stuff, not as much. AMGs have never been, let me take it to a track day. They've been more hammers, quick bursts of energy, lots of noise and drama. So are they going to lose the AMG flair going electric? I think so. You know, for me personally, AMG is a brand I really aspire to align myself with emotionally. I guess what I'm trying to say, I really love AMGs. Driven plenty of them. I love the noise and the raucous and the flames out the exhaust. As soon as you electrify that, do you lose everything that's good about AMG? Because they've never particularly handled that well. They've done big skids. But you know, the fun of an AMG has been that thunderous roar. And then they put the AMG 45 in the CLA with the 4-cylinder, and now we're going to have electrified versions of this 4-cylinder engine with a mild or a plug-in hybrid type system coming first. And personally, this might be the wrong road. We'll have to see. I think I'd rather see the AMGs, you know, make as many EV daily drivers as you can, put those on the road, but then keep the freaking big ass V8 and noise for the AMG line.
Yeah. All right. Let's move along to the next thing. I agree. That's very good points, Kyle. So I give Jeep a lot of flack for being behind on the electrification curve. But I think the brand has gotten some things right just recently. So with the Wrangler 4xe now beginning customer deliveries, it has announced its own charging network called the Jeep 4xe charging network. The Jeep branded charging stations will be built at or near trailheads of the Jeep Badge of Honor off-rail trails over the next year. Electrify America is its partner in this. But what I really like is the actual stations, and you can see here in this picture, or at least the bottom part. Excuse me. So it's got a big solar panel on top, and it's supported by a large pedestal with Jeep branding. I don't know if they have any battery storage in there, but they probably could if they wanted to. Looks like there's a lot of space. But I just like that it tells people that just happen to be going by that you can now buy an electrified Jeep. That, you know, Jeep is on the path to electrification. And yeah, I don't know. What do you think about this, Tom?
Well, I like the fact that it's not a closed network,
Right.
unlike what Rivian's doing. These are going to be charging stations that anybody can use. And if you access it with your Jeep, it'll be free because you'll have a free access to the network, which is cool. But they are level 2 stations. Okay. And right now the Jeeps that are coming out are all these plug-in hybrids. They don't have a fully electric Jeep yet that they're going to be selling. So for the plug-in hybrids, you're looking at about 2 hours of charging to charge the battery. Not terrible. I mean, I don't know how many Jeep owners are going to be driving to a trail and then say, okay, when we get there, we'll stop for 2 hours before we head out on the trail. I guess they could turn off the hybrid and have it in gas only mode until they arrive to the trail, and then they wouldn't even need to charge. Maybe they charge on their way out. So, I think it's cool. More chargers, the better. It's good that Jeep is partnering with Electrify America to offer free charging to Jeep owners. But as the plug-in hybrids, they don't necessarily need it. Now, they might want that extra power for the off-roading. They want to have the 2 powertrains, which I can totally understand. But as I said, they could just turn off the electrification while on the drive there to the trailhead and then turn it on once they're off-roading. So,
I charge it up from the combustion engine.
Yeah. So I don't really know how effective this is going to be for Jeeps. And then once Jeep eventually goes to full electrics, which we know everyone's going to, it'll be nearly useless at that point, because if you pull up with a 60 or 70 kilowatt hour battery and you're stuck charging at 7 kilowatts,
right.
What do you really, maybe if you're staying overnight, for the next day, if there's a lodge there, but hey, it's good to have more of these out there. I'm sure other people are going to use them, but it's a little, it's a little confusing on how this is really going to move the needle for Jeep owners.
Sure. And it won't. And the reason this is there is purely a marketing move. Look at, Jeep not many Jeep fans, enthusiasts really understand the deep use cases of charging, as you know, Tom. And so I've been browsing the Jeep forums and Facebook posts and things like this. And everyone's like, wow, did you see Jeep's installing a whole network of chargers? It's going to be so cool. They don't realize that it's going to take 2 hours to charge a plug-in hybrid that you're never going to plug in. And then it's going to take 9 or 12 hours to charge a full battery electric Jeep that, by the way, doesn't make sense. This is purely marketing money. I guarantee the use case on these chargers will be next to nothing, and they should have, cool. Maybe it makes sense from a charging marketing situation to spend the money, but from a practical use case, this is dumb.
So Kyle, when you said that the utilization will be next to nothing, do you mean for Jeep owners or for anybody? Because I could see other people pulling up and plugging in, because these are going to be at the trailheads where there's usually someplace to eat or something like that. So,
not really. I mean, you look at Moab, and I've spent quite a bit of time in Moab. You have the inner city. We have superchargers there. There's now DC fast chargers of 50 kilowatts. As soon as you go outside of Moab, and this is like Jeep home territory, this is where everyone's going to go. As soon as you leave Moab, there's nothing. You're just in the middle of the desert. It's just rocks, and it's beautiful rocks, but I'd rather go see more of it than just stare at them for 2 hours in one place and then burn that energy in 3 miles.
So maybe you pull up, you plug in, and you go for a 2-hour hike.
Well, that makes sense. It makes sense for hiking situations, right? Like let the dogs out, go run around. But the problem is Moab's 120 degrees all summer. So it doesn't make any sense. And that's just Moab. But, look, Rivian's got it right with this DC fast chargers at trailheads. How they're going to get the power to these adventure locations is a whole nother topic. Maybe they have built-in battery storage, but this Jeep thing is really I can't figure it out other than great marketing. They're putting chargers in everywhere. Look at what Jeep's doing. They outblew, came right after Rivian's launch, right? And because Jeep's a much bigger brand, it got way more press, but in actuality, it costs probably 1/10 of the cost.
Yeah, whenever I see solar panels, I always think someone's virtue signaling somewhere to say, hey, we're green because we've put solar panel. That's probably that is a
2 kilowatts, maybe
two and a half. I mean, if they're the best panels, maybe a 3 kilowatt system. But unless you got a battery stuck on that, it's absolutely just feeding free electricity back into the grid when no one's charging their car. And when these kind of companies, anyone, a car company, whatever, puts a solar panel either on a car and says, our car's got a solar panel on the roof, it's great to charge your 12-volt battery or whatever, you think, okay, there's some really limited use cases for that compared to the amount of oxygen you're giving that headline. So,
well, someone came up with a good solution, and it's for charging electric dirt bikes like this DSR. Absolutely. That makes sense because 2 hours you get a full charge.
Yes.
And then
if they have
a significant amount of range too, not just 21 miles. Like in the Jeep 4xE's got like a 21 mile range.
Yeah, but it's going to be 3 off road because you're cruising along under high load at low speed with AC blasting. It makes sense for electric motorbikes. So let's all thank Jeep for putting in a zero charging network.
We need to do a range test, like an off-road. We need to do an off-road range test because I think it'll do better than that off-road.
Yeah, I'm sure it'll do more than 3 miles. It just depends on the scenario.
Yeah.
We have one coming here pretty soon. I'm going to take it to Moab. Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, that's something to look out for. Hey, so speaking of Moab and electric Jeeps, real quick. So Motor One actually had a chance to drive. So every year, Jeep puts out like 4 concept vehicles, and this year they made an electric one. They took a manual Jeep Wrangler with a V6 Pentastar. They ripped out the Pentastar and stuck in electric motors. And there's Clint. He's a guy who does video for Motor One. He got to drive it. He had maybe a 5 or 10 minute drive, pretty short. And it's nothing that they're going to be making anytime soon. But I think they say it kind of speaks of what they're looking at. And this is kind of weird because it's got I think he said a 6-speed manual transmission. Of course, you don't need 6 gears. But he did mention it because he climbed over some pretty steep little rock things. But putting it in low, was super helpful. Put it in first. I'm not sure if I think they kept the low range transfer case as well. But yeah, maybe 6 gears is a little overkill. I think maybe 3 would be the maximum you need if you wanted to have like a manual transmission in a production vehicle, which I like the idea of a high-low transfer case for an off-road Jeep, but I don't think you need, extra gears beside that if you do the other thing right. I don't know. Kyle, do you have any thoughts about this Wrangler?
Yeah, again, another marketing deal. Seems pretty neat.
Sure.
Won't be anything like a production version. That's why they chose the manual. Wouldn't work with the calibration on an automatic transmission. So you kind of just drive this one around in fourth. It's not like you're really rowing the gears while driving it. You don't need to put the clutch in at 0. They did put a stronger clutch in this version, though, to handle the higher torque for the journalists who are going to slip it, of course. But there's no need. Probably pretty hard to rev match. Neat, cool, but not representative of anything we can drive.
I know with the when you do a conversion like this with a manual transmission, I remember Jack at EVTV, he always put in a stronger clutch because they originally tried like a regular clutch and no, they just don't hold up with that torque. I'm not sure how much of that involves like slipping the clutch like you're saying.
No, a lot of it's just holding that torque as well, especially when you're at low vehicle speed with high torque. You're putting that clutch plate under the most amount of stress possible. And so, over time you have the basically you're prone to slipping, which then wears the clutch out faster. And it's just a increasing problem. But yeah, cool that they did this. Neat, but I don't think they let anyone really wheel it off road. I saw the guys at TFL, our friends down the street, drive it around a little bit. Seemed cool, neat.
Yeah. Tom, anything else for this, or will this move on?
Move on.
Okay.
We're not making it. Move on.
So the 2022 Jeep Hummer EV VIN number 001 has sold for $2.5 million. That's a lot of cash. It was up for
a good write-off right there.
Yeah, that's basically what it is. It's for a charity. It was for a Twin Towers, Tunnel to Towers charity, a 911 associated charity. So that's really great. But I thought it was neat because it kind of signals like the first. They were renovating the Hamtramck factory to build these, and so they've got that. It's finished to some extent. And now, production is going to be super low still, since it's really only regular custom deliveries are like at the end of the year or something. But that was, something to see. And you could see if you go to the Inside AV's website, we have a couple of different posts about this with videos, and you can see it like moving under its own power. And like when this debuted, a lot of people were kind of complaining. The GMs like showed all this like computer generated footage of the thing, like instead of the actual vehicle, which is kind of silly, because but so now you can see it is an actual real thing, and some of the video has a lot of people standing around, so you can really get a sense of the presence of this thing. It's significant.
I still don't think it's a production powertrain. I think it's just that little buck they put in there to get it to move around.
You think?
Yeah, I don't think it's production powertrain.
It's VIN 001. It's got to have the.
Did the VIN 001 actually come across the screen and then end up in the customer's hands? Or was it the pre-production car that is then future selling the 001?
That's a very good point.
Yeah, I don't know if that's the exact vehicle.
I don't think it is. That's the one we've seen all along.
I guess we should call up GM and find out.
Well, the CG they put out was it fooled me. It absolutely
it was good. It was really good.
Because it was like 2 or 3 days later they let some like the YouTubers in. I saw Doug DeMuro's video, and he just I didn't watch the whole thing, but I'm like, there's a cable coming out of it to the wall. And like he's going, this is amazing, and they've let me have a look at this in kind of the way that he always does, and this is such a cool car. And I'm like, can someone mention the cable coming out of underneath it? And but just ignored it. He might have done. I didn't watch the whole video; it was long, but yeah, that was an early reveal.
Yeah, Doug usually doesn't pull anything like that. He probably would mention it.
He was just pumped about seeing it, and I'm like, hang on a minute.
So speaking of underneath of it, we do have a post with a video that does have a little glimpse of the underneath of it. I don't know if we can pull that up or not. The post is called "See What the GMC Hummer EV Looks Like Underneath" in a new close-up video.
You know what I love about this is everyone freaked out about crab walk, right? And they even made the logo a little crab thing, which is so silly. But guess what? The S-Class has 10 degrees of rear steer already on their combustion vehicle.
All right.
which is the same as the Hummer EV.
There's a little shot of the underneath. Yeah. It looks.
Ooh,
Yep.
I'm trying to see. I'm trying to see if it looks like what I
A lot of
expect
plastic
the
hiding stuff.
Yeah,
Right,
I mean, it's
right.
real,
That-
I suppose.
Yeah.
At least it is a vehicle, I guess.
Mhm.
Right.
I mean,
Yep.
that looks like the suspension parts that I saw, at GM. Yeah, it's hard. I can't see the electric motor. It's a little piece of wire. Yeah, I don't know. I'd like to think it's the actual thing.
Well,
but-
either way, it doesn't matter. They're going to have to make something that looks like
Sure.
this, and then we'll test it out then. But here's the deal. I'd be very surprised if that VIN 001 is a production-ready car that ended up in a customer's hands. I think it's just, ended up there, and they said, look, you'll get it in a year or whatever it comes out.
Right.
Mm.
Hopefully before the end of the year.
I'm with Kyle.
Okay,
I don't think that doesn't even have a VIN. I don't think that's a pre-production model that's not available to be not legal to drive on roads and so forth, and so without special insurance. So I mean, we could be wrong, but I highly doubt that that's 001.
Well,
But,
I am
and then
disappointed.
really quickly, I know we're up against with the time, but I want to mention about this. Well, the best thing about this to me was that the money's going to charity, and the Barrett Jackson auctions, they actually offered a bunch. I think it was 6 vehicles that were VIN 001. Ford had a couple in there, and the Hummer was the most, 2.5 million, I think, for the VIN 001s, and that went to the Tunnel to Towers Foundation. And really quickly, and because this is close to me, because I live here in New Jersey, and I actually watched the towers fall that day. A horrific, traumatizing day for anybody in this area that actually saw that. Well, I guess you didn't have to be in the area, but it seemed worse when you were there watching it. And this charity was started in the name of Stephen Stiller, who was a fireman who was done working for the day, and he had driven through the tunnel to New Jersey. And what happened was that's when he got the call of the radio that the first plane hit the towers. Now the tunnels closed because immediately they shut all the tunnels when this happened, so you couldn't get back through the tunnel. They didn't know what type of terrorist event was going on. And this guy parked his car, pulled his gear out of his car. He was done with his shift, loaded it up on his back, and ran through the tunnel. And it's not short.
No.
To aid his brothers and sister firemen, and he lost his life that day. So they started this Stephen Stiller Foundation. They call it Tunnel to Towers because he ran through the tunnel to get to the towers. And I think it's fantastic that GM participated in this and donated this vehicle and raised $2.5 million for a fantastic charity that helps survivors and the families of fallen firefighters on 9/11.
Yes. Thank you for sharing that. That was great. All right. So
before the end of the show, I got something to bring up.
Sure.
All right. I just want to mention it because I don't think we talked about Tesla enough in this episode.
We're going to talk about the Summit in a second. But
okay, well, I want to talk about my Tesla specifically.
Okay, sure.
We didn't talk about my car enough. Okay, so
Okay.
I have hit. Let me just check really quick. I have hit almost 82,000 miles. Here it is. And there's my VIN number in case anyone wants to do something with it. Go right ahead. I don't care. Anyway, 81,466 miles in a year and a half, almost a little bit more than that of ownership. This car has been flawless. I just had to bring it up because I was driving it yesterday. I never drive it. It's Alyssa's car. And I drove it to get it washed because someone said you never wash your car. Guess what? I had it washed yesterday. So, took it out and it is like solid drivetrains, really freaking fast, does big drifts. I was like, wow, this thing's awesome. And so it just, I had to reignite the little Tesla Model 3 love in there for being just a freaking workhorse of a car. That thing has taken abuse. Now 3 dogs in it all the time, jumping, drifting, supercharged more than 70% of those miles because we road trip it so much. And it's been totally fine and only about 6.5% degradation on the most recent test.
Right. So if you've been watching the podcast over this past year, that Kyle's not afraid to be very critical of Tesla, the cars, the management, whatever, he feels like there's an issue with, but he is a Tesla owner and, he thinks it's a pretty good car. So there's that. All right. So, okay.
Just regaining some of our Tesla audience there.
I just like how Kyle said, I never drive it. The next sentence after it says it has 82,000 miles on it. I never drive it.
I haven't driven it much in the past 6 months or so. Yeah,
I got you, Kyle.
Yeah, it's almost like they've got a problem on their hands to stay in people's minds, because I put a poll up on my Twitter this week about the best new EV that you'd want on your driveway if you had the choice. Was it ID4, Mustang, Ioniq 5, or Kia EV6? So of course, all the Tesla fans. I think one of the Tesla guys that follows me retweeted, and then it went to the wider Twitter Tesla community, and so they piled in to be like, "How can you not put Model Y on?" And I'm like, "Okay, well, first I can't buy it, so I didn't put it on my poll."
Sure.
And they're like, "Well, why don't you put Model 3 on?" And because I was genuinely excited about, which of these, fantasy driveway, these 4 new EVs would you have?
Sure.
And it didn't cross my mind to put Model 3 on there. Now, of course, Tesla fans very upset because it's the world's best-selling EV. They feel like, well, defend the brand and it should be on there. But hand on heart, it just didn't cross my mind, because it's like, okay, that's good. Like that, it's solid, it's brilliant. It's the best at some things, not the best at other things. And I kind of thought afterwards, I didn't even think, could I put Model 3 on there? No, I won't bother. But it didn't come across. I wonder if with 3, now that Y is around and you've got new S and X, if there's going to be some challenges there in the next couple of years to keep the 3,
Don't forget about it. And I'm looking at it right now.
Yeah,
it just blends in. Yeah. It's just, they're so common now. Like my neighbor across the street has one. These guys have one. They're on every freaking corner here. It's just like a Prius now. It's a great Prius, but it's just an appliance from A to B, and it's a really good one. It's like that Whirlpool that never gives up.
So I wanted to hit on the Semi for a second real quick. So I believe we talked about that, I think it was last week. As I mentioned that Frito-Lay, which is owned by PepsiCo, is getting 15 trucks, they thought, before the end of the year. And then I got some pushback. I mentioned this on Twitter or something. I got some pushback, and people were saying, and Elon tweeted too at some point, that they aren't going to have batteries until next year. But apparently so the word is that from sources who are unnamed, that the new building they have in the desert there beside the Gigafactory 1 is going to be the production, or at least a low volume production place for the Semi, and they expect to be building 5 trucks a week before the end of the year. So there could be Tesla semis on the road this year. I'm very excited about this vehicle, and I wish it was out already. And they need to have a Semi day so we can just really get to know what's happened with this vehicle over the years since it was initially introduced. There's been any number of changes to it. So we want to know, and I kind of want to know. And then is it going to be built there? There's other rumors that it's going to be built in Austin, with the Cybertruck and stuff. I don't know. I know that Tesla has like a huge amount of space out there and big buildings right by the Gigafactory 1. So that's where I kind of expected it to be built, but I've been wrong before. Anyone want to touch on that at all?
Cool.
Okay. Awesome. So just a couple things to hit real quick before we head out. The Aptera has revealed that its body is made out of hemp. So I thought that was interesting. And they've got 10,000 reservations. So, okay, go ahead, Kyle, real quick.
Okay, John, who's our editor-in-chief for all of Motorsport Network automotive division, who runs Inside EVs, has been wanting to write a piece about how cars should be not made of metal anymore, right, Dominic?
That's true. Fabric, yeah. He was thinking fabric. Right?
But this, I'm really excited to see his take on this. So we got to ask him, because he's, I think, been doing a lot of research into alternative vehicle molds, basically. This seems pretty neat.
Right. So in the 90s, I actually worked at a hemp store in Montreal called Chanfranville, or Hemp in the City. And we sold like hemp shirts and hemp boots and backpacks and books and cosmetics and, everything made out of hemp. And I was there was a lot of speculation in the industry about making cars and body panels and things like this with the hemp herds. It's like the stock basically with all the fibers taken out of it. It's like a woody kind of high cellulose thing, and so it looks like they are going to do that. Nathan Armstrong is involved with Aptera, and he's also involved in hemp developing this hemp material in Canada, I believe. I've got that right. Aptera has a new video. They have 2 channels. There's a Aptera, and then there's, if you search Aptera in YouTube, you can find the other channel real quick. It pops right up. And then their most recent video, we have it on a post, actually, I believe, on Inside EVs, and you can hear about that development in more detail. I think he talks about how the cooling channels inside of that body shell, which I think is kind of interesting, and I'm really curious to see how well that actually works in practice. So, and one more thing I thought was kind of interesting. So the SK Innovation is a South Korean battery maker, and they had a big decision against them recently from LG Chem, accusing them of, was it IP theft or some sort of industrial wrongdoing. So, but ITC has done, the International Trade Commission has done a turnaround and now says that SK Innovation did not infringe on LG Energy Solution patents, which I think is 2 slightly different issues, but I'm thinking this gives, so their SK Innovation was planning on building some battery factories in the United States, and it was kind of a big deal, and those plans are kind of in limbo. I'm not sure if they were canceled or not. Someone can speak up if they know right off the top of their head. But anyway, I think that gives the Biden administration a chance to kind of give them some sort of allowance to let them go ahead and build their factories. But we'll have to wait and see. That's just
didn't we say this one would run and run? It wasn't over, right? It's still going to run and run.
That's right.
There's too much at stake to just strike somebody out of the country. Some sort of compromise or settlement or something will be reached, and they're building those facilities now. They're recruiting, and that needs to carry on for made in America jobs, but also just because we need batteries.
We need batteries.
Yeah, I mean, you can't. I'm not saying you should ever steal IP, and we don't want to comment on this particular case, but it's going to run and run.
All right, so that brings us to the end of this show and the end of our first year of the Inside EVs podcast. Cheers to you all again.
Should we do some more? Let's do some more this year. Let's do another year. Okay.
Another year? Okay.
No,
I'm up for it. I'm ready.
It's a lot of early mornings for me,
Well, it is.
It's a lot of late nights for me, actually. I'm up till like 2 a.m. getting these notes together. Anyway. So if you have, I'd like to thank you all for being a part of this. I really appreciate it. We can't do it without you, of course. And, it amazes me to see thousands of people watching us, talk about electric vehicles and the quickening pace of electrification. It's really a great thing. I've been, looking at and studying electrification for the last dozen years or so, and the future didn't always look this bright. So I'm really happy about all that, and I'm glad that there's so much excitement around it out there from you all. All right. So if you have any comments about any of the topics on today's show, you can comment on the Inside EVs podcast post, the YouTube comment section, or on the Inside EVs podcast forum thread. Don't forget, you can find and follow our panelists on Twitter. Tom Mologney is at Tomolog. Martin Lee is at EV News Daily. Kyle Connor is at Out of Spec. I'm at Dominic_Y. Click subscribe and tap that bell icon for notifications, and we'll see you all again next week. Ciao.